Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Well, hello, Rhonda? The guy's getting more senile by the week.
Hi, David, and welcome, listeners. This is episode 246. We have a really special guest with us today, Todd Daly. Todd recently did personal work in the Tuesday group, and we're going to use the personal work that he did broken up into 2 episodes. Today's, we'll begin it, and next week will be the conclusion of it. And Todd's going to say a few words about what the experience was like in a few minutes. Hi, Todd.
Hey, Rhonda. Hey, David.
Hi, Todd.
It was so cool. It was so cool to hear the hello, Rhonda, in person. That was priceless.
Yeah.
Yeah. David's awesome with that. I thought before we begin, I'd read a really quick endorsement. This was about episode 243, which we published May 24th. That was an Ask David on what's the role of hope and moral scrupulosity and other things. And Ed G., who's a frequent writer about the podcast, wrote us, "Wow, fantastic answers as usual. Thanks so much for the kind comments. In the words of Mike Myers from Saturday Night Live, I'm verklempt."
Cool. Thank you, Ed. Ed sends us many wonderful comments along with so many of you listeners, and we really, really appreciate it. And we're excited to have you, Todd, to give us a little follow-up. It must have been some considerable weeks ago when we did that podcast, and as usual, we're going to broadcast this as a part 1 and part 2. The part 1 will be through the empathy, the testing, and the T equals testing, E equals empathy phase. And then part 2 will be A equals assessment of resistance and M equals methods. And I would say in general that the personal work continues to be among our most popular podcasts and our most effective ways of teaching, both through the podcast and in the Tuesday groups. And so we want to thank you for that. And it always takes a lot of courage for people to share their inner soul, bare their soul with, in this case, it will be thousands of people. But I don't think we've ever had a negative comment on people who did personal work, but just outpourings of a lot of love and gratitude. And also this gives us a chance to show the magic rather than just talk about the magic. And for those of you who are interested, who are students, a chance to really, if you like this team CBT and you like the idea of getting really rapid results, a chance to study some of these episodes. I've been thinking, Rhonda, we must have published a good 10 or 15 or even 20 live therapy sessions now in the podcasts. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking that you could have actually in a graduate school, a PsyD program or some masters of counseling, you could be just focused on studying, listening and studying and commenting on these live therapy sessions and then practicing the techniques. I think it would make for a great class if somebody wants to do it. And I'll just make 3 quick comments and then shut up. Now, number 1 is that the show notes are always important. And if you sign up for the podcast on my website, feelinggood.com, and maybe some of the other podcast services too, you can click on the show notes. And the ones with Todd, with your work, this one and next week, I put hours into them, really. And I think they'll deeply enhance your understanding. If you're really interested and want to learn more, read the show notes, and you'll get a second injection of understanding.
Because you also post the testing data and Todd's daily mood log.
Yeah.
So people can follow along with the podcast looking at those forms.
Yeah, absolutely. A second quick teaching point is that a lot of the therapists emphasize, that all this originated in childhood experiences. But in team, we're focused on the here and now. State a moment that you were upset and what you were thinking and feeling, and that's the fractal that contains the key to all of your suffering. When you change yourself at that moment, you can have the key to all the suffering that you'll have at any time for the rest of your life. But tonight we have the unique experience of you brought us a traumatic experience from childhood. The day my childhood ended, I think, is the name of the podcast, part 1 and part 2. So you'll see how we can deal with that within the structure of team. And finally, in the empathy phase, you'll see me making an error that I make from time to time of jumping in. You had expressed, Todd, interest in a particular technique called memory rescripting. And so I was kind of eager to do that because Jill said she didn't know how to do that. And I jumped in during the empathy phase to demonstrate this technique, and it somewhat fell flat. And then I realized my error, and we corrected the ship, and things went great. But at any rate, over to you, Todd.
Todd, will you tell us why you decided to do personal work in the Tuesday group, and why you decided to let us publish it as a podcast?
Wow. Yeah. I'm trying to where to start. Yeah, I've done some personal work with David before in some of the hikes, and in the Tuesday group, we're always doing and encouraging personal work. And Elizabeth did some amazing work kind of a couple of months back, and that was kind of one of the initial draws. And then what David was just talking about, the memory rescripting, we were talking about that as a possible Tuesday night topic. And then I was like, wow, what a cool thing. I wonder if I could kind of use this as something that's kind of been on my mind, that's been impacting me since I was a kid. Mm. And then just to kind of like, why for the podcast? Was that your?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I guess it was more of, I feel indebted to you and David and to Jill, and, it's personal work, but it's also teaching. So I wanted to, if this is possible to be a teaching moment, I wanted to 1,000% endorse that.
Nice, thanks. What was the experience like for you?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was terrifying. It was powerful. It was the power of team. Just the specificity. I know you guys did a podcast recently on paradox. I think you could also do a podcast on specificity, on what David's just talking about, the fractal. And I think using the kind of that daily mood log really honed in on one moment in time in my life. And then when you could kind of dissect it, as you guys know, with the emotions and thoughts, all of these thoughts kind of started popping up that night that I didn't realize I had. And then when we did the agenda setting and all the different techniques, it just beyond amazing. And I've been on a high ever since. Mm. So, yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Should we dive in, Rhonda?
Let's dive in.
Okay, and thank you so much, and we'll see you again next week for the exciting conclusion. But now for the beginning of the awesome and courageous work with Todd, who's going to tell us about the tragic and horrible day his childhood ended when he was 8 years old. And just to get us started with the testing, I just want to thank you, Todd, for volunteering. And this might go in the direction of exposure. It could go in some entirely different direction. When we're doing live work, we go where the energy brings us, and without some plan ahead of time to show this or that. But on the brief mood survey, your depression score was only 6, which is just like very mild. But one was extreme, which was the sad or depressed. That was 4. So that dimension is very strong. And the suicide is 0. The anxiety is 14 out of 20, which is, high moderate getting into extreme or severe anxiety. The anger is 5, which is, just mild anger. The happiness is 20 out of 20. So in spite of being upset about certain things, Todd, you're a very happy guy, and your marital score is 27 out of 30. And then also on the brief mood survey, maybe we can make that part of our testing too, although we'll want to ask you more about it. And gosh, I don't have my glasses here, but I think I can read it. In 1976, living at home with your brother, your mom, and your dad, and this night ended up being the last night my father lived together with us. It ended up in fighting and yelling and screaming and domestic violence. My parents were both drunk and bottles were thrown, and Mom was beaten. And that was the last night also that my dad had a drink. And then when you're thinking about that, the numbers are quite different from the ones on the brief mood survey. You're feeling sad and down and unhappy 100%, which is in the extreme. And then you're feeling worried, panicky, and frightened, which is, again, 100, which is in the extreme. You're feeling remorseful and ashamed, 90, which is super severe, and inadequate, 80%, which is severe, and then lonely, unloved, rejected, alone, and abandoned, 100%. Hopeless, 60%, defeated, 60%, and resentful and upset, 90%. Then you have some negative thoughts we'll go over in a little bit. But why don't you take over here a little bit, Jill, and we'll talk to Todd and see if we can empathize and get some understanding of what was going on and how you were feeling then, how you're feeling now, and how this happened to come up just now.
Okay, so Todd, I can't see you yet on my screen. Maybe can you say something?
Hey, Jill.
There you go. Sorry, it's nicer to talk to someone I can see than talking to the abyss. So
yeah.
It's good to see you. And, you reached out to us to say that you would like to do some personal work. And so, maybe you can, I know David's kind of given everyone the scoop on what you've submitted to us, but can you just tell us a little bit about how you've been feeling and whatever you'd like to share with us about, what you've been experiencing or what happened in the past?
Yeah, I feel like, we were going to do the exposure night, and then I think there was a cognitive flooding, maybe description. And then I was reading the ebook, and then I was getting all excited about it, thinking like, wow, you could go back in time and think about one moment and potentially re-script or kind of go back and just have a better experience. So then I thought like, wow, maybe this is a win-win if I bring it up. And then as things started unfolding, I'm like, wait, what's happening? And maybe exposure is something different. And I feel like a complete knucklehead that I brought this up. And so more of the anxiety that David was describing was more of like, so there's the sadness, which was the high one that David was talking about. And that's, sad or depressed. It was like 1,000% sad by the story. But then I was more nervous about this is a training group and we were going to talk about exposure and people seemed all fired up and Todd is derailing this night for this kind of woe is me sob story. And now you got to ask Todd permission on on videotaping, you got to ask Todd this for this. And I'm just uncomfortable with the attention kind of my direction. And now we're talking about like kind of the worst nights of my life. And now it's like, again, like, I don't want a pity party. And that's kind of how I feel that I'm kind of bringing upon us tonight.
Okay.
So that was long-winded, but does that make sense at all?
Sure. Well,
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel sad to know because these are all kind of feelings that you're having about bringing this up tonight. Like we're not yet talking about what happened or
Totally.
what potentially you'd want help with, but just recognizing that you have a lot of feelings about being the center of attention. You said you on the one hand, you were thinking, oh, I'll bring this up because this might be a good example of exposure and a good opportunity to kind of teach and demo with you. Which it sure might, who knows, right? And then at the same time, you said you feel kind of like a knucklehead I'm feeling sad, Todd. I want to talk to you a little bit about all of what's coming up for you. It sounds like you said, I feel like a knucklehead that I brought this up. I feel like I'm that I'm derailing this night, that I'm like a sob story. It sounds like you're feeling kind of guilty for bringing this up with us. Almost like, I think, because David and I emailed you that we were like, sure, personal work is always a priority and we always love working with people, and everyone in the group always gets very excited to learn and watch. And so, at the same time, I think actually our reaction about it may or may not be exposure. It doesn't have so much to do with you, but just our awareness that whenever we try to say, let's teach this method and do personal work with this person, somehow it'll end up like we're trying to force a square peg in a round hole. And so we wanted to be really flexible with you and ourselves, as to say, we'd love to work with you, but who knows where the night will go. And if it doesn't go in the direction of exposure, that's perfectly okay with us.
For sure.
I, by the way, added 3 negative thoughts to your daily mood log, and you group members may want to jot them down too. The 4 that you had is, I should have protected my mom from my father, which is 100%. I should have hidden with I should not have hidden with my brother from my dad, 100. I should have come sooner to my parents' bedroom to see what was going on. That's 100. I should not have been afraid of my father. That's 100. And then the 3 I added are, the number 5 is, I'm derailing the group. And how much did you believe that one?
90%.
90. And then I'm a knucklehead.
I guess the knucklehead, like 60.
60. And then this will just be a sob story.
100, for sure.
And how much did you believe that thought?
100.
100? Good. I'll back out of the picture. I just wanted to capture those butterflies before they flew away. Back to you, Jill.
Also, Todd, it sounds like I'm sort of torn, because on the one hand, I'd love to connect with you and learn more about kind of what happened and all of what you've been feeling. And at the same time, it sounds like you're having some, mixed feelings and some, maybe some shame or some guilt or some worry around kind of being the center of attention. So I guess I just wanted to give you space to talk about that with us and maybe get what you need around that before, pushing ahead. But I'm sort of open to whatever direction you're wanting this to go in.
I appreciate that. No, I think both of you are, so kind in the email. So I quickly pivoted to, wow, this is scary, but potentially could be super helpful. And if it's helpful for me and potentially a few people here, like a win-win for sure.
Yeah.
When you say it's scary, what is it that's frightening to you?
I just feel like, again, this is pretty raw, vulnerable kind of one night in my life that, I just don't think about very often. And when I do, it's that 100% sadness. In my mind, kind of that miracle cure is like, how do I better access kind of that sadness? Like, how do I find that 8-year-old kid again?
Yeah. You said that's your miracle cure. In other words, like if we could be successful tonight, you're saying you'd feel actually more in touch with that sadness, like you'd.
Yeah, maybe. Enlightenment. I mean, to set the bar high, potentially. No. Again, it's just like, when I read this, like part of me is like that pity party kind of thought, but then it's also, if I really feel the words of what I wrote, it's like, it's extremely painful. And that's the scary part. It's just like, this is my life, and it's shitty and it's unclean. And, maybe, just more thoughts come up that are distortions. So I tend not to think about it.
Like you just mentioned something about unclean, or it's not.
Yeah.
Clean. Say that again.
My life is messy, and I don't want to be like a poster child for the DML, but the more we talk, the more these things keep coming out. It's like, like it's shitty, and I'm screwed up. I'm messed up. I'm way more messed up than everybody else. And, it's kind of the cliche mental health people have kind of problems, and mine are worse than everybody else's.
I don't mean to interrupt all the wonderful things that you're saying that are so strong and meaningful, but I added 3 more negative thoughts. My life is shitty. I'm screwed up, and more than others. And what would be the percent, I believe, on my life is shitty?
The story is the story is shitty. My life is shitty. I guess more of the screwed up is what I believe, 100%.
100%. And then my life is shitty.
Is it my life was screwed up, or I am screwed up?
Just I'm screwed up. Like it's just it's messy.
Yeah.
Addictions, mental health, all over the place in my family history.
And then I'm worse than others.
Yeah.
What's the belief there?
100%.
Oh, okay. And then can you tell us more what happened that your father stopped drinking and he moved out and your parents were separated, or?
It was just more of, and then I guess going back to the anxiety and the, I don't want to get like too like into the content or psychodynamic. I feel like I'm on, like I don't want to get too much into that, but I certainly, I think it's important to look at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, I would actually much prefer that you share more about what happened. So the upsetting event, right? Or what all was going on even that precipitated the upsetting event. So please don't go back or think there's something you should or shouldn't share with us. If it you want to share it, then it's important.
So just a little context. My parents got married really young, at 18, and had my brother at 20 and me at 24. And then just, they're both recovering addicts, and they're both, his family history of depression and anxiety. And what really led to this was, my mom was arrested last week for, driving under the influence. And so then that kind of got me kind of thinking about my relationship with her. But, so just my dad was angry, unhappy, critical, abusive. And that night, and they drank all the time. And it was just it was a different time. It was, we live in a child-centered world now. Certainly back then it was, we were on our own, and, they were living in the 70s, and that was excess and drinking, the Eagles, just, is that, and so then leading up to this night, they were, this was not to be too dramatic, but like, this is like the last night our family was together. And like, I thought my dad was going to kill my mom that night. And so my brother and I were hiding, and we had bunk beds, and we kind of barricaded them in our room and kind of made a fort. Like, it was the worst noise, and everything was just screaming. Think of like your mom screaming as loud as she can and like asking for help. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And my brother just took me, and we were hiding. And then at some point, I was like, what the hell? Like, we got to go see what's going on with my mom, what's going on. And then, and that's where all of the thoughts kind of come up, because by the time I got to their bedroom, and they opened the door, my mom was beaten up and bruised and disheveled and, hysterical. But at the same time telling me that everything was okay. And, it's just, I feel like I'm saying the words. It's hard to kind of feel the emotion of what that kid was going through, and that's what's sad, 100%.
And so Todd, gosh, I do feel so sad hearing your story, and
it's a sob story, right?
It's a sad story. I don't know. It sounds like when you say it's a sob story, that's some way of
disparaging
it. Yeah, disparaging it. Like I would rather just say it's just a real story of, a family that experienced a ton of pain and dysfunction.
Yeah.
And I do feel really sad hearing it. I mean, I think that just makes me a caring human being, and makes you someone that I care about, but yeah, I mean, it sounds very scary and upsetting and kind of, terrifying that you were this 8-year-old boy, and I guess your 10-year-old brother and you in the house, and your parents were both drunk, and it sounds like kind of out of control and screaming and yelling. And you said at one point you really were afraid that your dad was going to kill your mom that night, which, I mean, my heart was racing as I was hearing the story, just feeling scared for you and sad for you. And you described that you were sort of describing it too as just such a different time than what we live in now, right? Like feeling like we live in this very child-centered time, and that was definitely not at all the time that you're saying. Like the 70s that you grew up in was very parent-focused, and they were kind of partying and loose, and you were totally on your own, you guys as kids. So, I mean, I also heard you saying, I think it was in the daily mood log, but you said something too, that you have this guilt around, like, here, my brother and I were scared, but we were hiding and thinking something terrible is happening, but kind of we're too afraid to go out and see. And it sounds like you have some feelings of guilt around that. Like, I think you wrote that we shouldn't have hidden. Yeah. And then you said that finally, when you did go out, you saw your mother having been beaten up and really disheveled, but also at the same time telling you kind of, don't worry, everything's okay. And you're also telling us, Todd, that when you tell the story and when you think about it, that I'm not sure if I totally understood this part, so I'd love to understand it better, but something about like that you don't feel that connected to the story, that you don't feel the feelings, and that makes you feel sad. But I'm not sure if I totally understood the last part. Like, was I getting that right?
Yeah, I think, obviously this isn't a healthy approach, but, well, I guess to answer the first part, like, the shame is like, I was a freaking coward and I didn't go see my mom. I didn't go out and, see what was happening. And like, who does that? Like, it's just, I wish I could have been in front of her while my dad was doing that to her.
So you're also, I mean, I'm writing it down as a thought. I don't want to stop, but you're also telling yourself that I was a coward and that I should have protected my mom.
Yeah. And then some kind of warped way in my thinking is maybe that would have led her in a better path in her life.
Like that I could have saved my mom?
As cliche as that sounds, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, Todd, and I'm sad too to hear what you went through. And just a couple of questions. When did your dad move out then?
Yeah. So, so he moved out, and then my brother moved with him, and I stayed with my mom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
is he still alive?
Yeah.
Do you see him now, or?
Yeah. Exactly. So he's in Southern California right now.
And then, do you ever tear up over when you think about this and picture your mom?
I would like to. I'm crying in my mind right now.
Yeah. Are you feeling tearful at this moment?
I'm thinking I'm tearful, but I'm not feeling. That, and that's kind of that's the growth. Jill, you're asking about the should statements, but then you were asking about something else. I'm trying to remember what.
Well, just kind of this piece, I think, almost that it sounds like you're telling yourself that you should be feeling other than how you are feeling. Like you said something about your sadness, like almost. So I would think when I see sad, down, and unhappy that it's, in recalling what happened. And that's certainly how I feel as you're telling me, sad for you and your family. But you said something like, it almost sounds like you're saying I'm sad that I'm not sad, or like you're telling yourself that you should be experiencing this differently than you are. And that's the part I wasn't totally sure that I understood.
Or that I'd like to get access to my sadness and have a good cry so I could feel those feelings. And they're kind of being cut off a little bit.
So if all of your thoughts create all of your emotions, and you have all these painful emotions, as a kid, I quickly realized just not to think about it. And at the same time, I pretty much stopped being a kid, so that kind of like ended my childhood, like kind of that night.
And you were 8.
So as a therapist, that's clearly not like a healthy way to cope with one's emotions. So that's, embarrassing.
Wait, tell what you mean when you said like that ended my childhood that night. Tell me what you mean by that.
In my mind, I just, my life ended at 8, and then I kind of started a new life, and I really just put it out of my mind. And that works most of the time, except for this goes back to the other potential thing for tonight. Like, I feel all alone, like in the world, I'm here, but I'm not. And, I would love to kind of, and the other thing, David, you had your, the colleague that was the grief.
Yeah.
And so this was kind of like, in a weird way, like, how do I connect my grieving with my childhood experience that isn't with me? So maybe that sounds weird. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense that you'd like to somehow experience this more fully and come to terms with it a little bit, and that instead of kind of walling it off. And then another thought that I had would be that maybe these thoughts about I was a frickin' coward and things that make it kind of hard, get in the way of grieving and feeling some of that sadness, and then anger, maybe some angry thoughts toward your dad too. A lot of this is I should have, but I'm wondering if you have some angry thoughts too.
For sure. Oh yeah. but it's like, mad at him. But again, it was that kind of that, you don't speak unless you're spoken to. And it's just kind of that top down mentality. Mm-hmm. And he just was a controlling, angry, sober person, angry, sober by the time I moved in with him. I don't know if I'm answering that. Yeah. Am I angry at him? Yeah. I'm angry at him. And in a weird way, I'm kind of angry at my mom for not being there, for taking care of me as a kid. She made a series of bad decisions. And when I start to say these words, that goes back to that, like, woe is me. And it's like, oh, I just hate that. I've never been one to, want to be consoled. I'll figure it out on my own.
Could I just say one thing? I'm hearing what you're saying, Todd. I kind of hear you of having really two minds about this, and it totally makes sense to me. Like, there's actually part of you that really wants to get in touch with the emotions and the vulnerability, and to feel sad like an 8-year-old would, to feel sad and scared and
exactly.
And like no one was there to take care of me. And I mean, I totally connect with, you wanting to feel all those feelings. And then I kind of see you stopping yourself and then saying, like, I hate woe is me. Basically, I'm not allowed to have those feelings. And so I'm just seeing you feeling really, really conflicted about how you want to feel, even wanting to feel open and vulnerable and sort of like process all of it and let yourself feel those feelings, and then stopping yourself by telling yourself, kind of like, get over it, grow up, and cut the shit.
Exactly it.
Am I getting you right? Is that true?
That is really good. Yeah. I am conflicted. Is that resistance? Is that what that is? I mean, I would love to do
I don't know if we have to label it as anything. Let's just talk about it.
Yeah, no, I would so love to be in touch with that 8-year-old kid. And how do I get there?
Well, I think you're giving us some ideas by essentially it's like you're on the way there when you're talking in this open and vulnerable way, and then all the thoughts that go like, cut the shit and stop being a baby, and I don't like this, woe is me, and you're lame for feeling sad. I'm guessing it's those kinds of thoughts that are getting in your way of feeling your feelings, and that perhaps we should write those on the daily mood log and work on those. I mean, it's just an idea, so we can still.
I like that. Yeah. Where does that other woe is me come from? Yeah. That was pretty damn good. That was impressive.
I'm also wondering if at some point, you try some things and sometimes they work, sometimes they're kind of, they don't work, and that's okay, hopefully too. But I think that your original concept of using some of those methods, which can happen pretty quickly, not take a lot of time, but if it might be useful to kind of close your eyes and picture your mother and see what you want to say to her, and the same with your father as well, perhaps as a bit of a starting point.
You mean like right now?
Yeah.
Is that what you're suggesting that right now?
Yeah. Just to see if it goes anywhere, because you said you could picture your mother walking into the room.
Yeah.
And what can you see that? Close your eyes and see her, and then kind of how are you feeling right now?
just confused and scared, and just like wondering what the hell's going on. Mm-hmm. But knowing what's going on, but this wasn't an isolated thing, but this was the worst. And then yeah, so she just opens the door, and it's just a classic 70s kind of room with a water bed and kind of wood paneling, kind of cheesy furniture, shag carpet, and everything is crystal clear. I guess I was so little, though. Like, what is an 8-year-old supposed to say to, your mother? In my mind, I feel like I should have.
What do you want to say to her right now? You can see her there.
I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm sorry you had to deal with this. Like, we need to get you out of here. You should not be with this man. Like, I would take her away. I would try to get her out of there.
What else do you want to say to her? Tell her how you're feeling?
Just so sad for her that I couldn't protect her.
Talk to her.
Talk to my mom?
Yeah.
I guess I'm kind of like stuck between yelling and trying to fight my dad and be angry and out of control, but also trying to be loving and nurturing and taking my mom out of there and telling her how much I love her. And
tell her,
I love you. Let's get out of here. Like, I just can't. I can't live this way. I would scream. I would like, let's get out. I would be out of control, and I guess I was just too calm in that moment. I was sad. I was just frozen. Like, I didn't know what to do.
Is your dad in the room?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What do you want to say to him?
But he seemed like he was kind of out of the picture, like he was probably embarrassed, humiliated. Like, Dad, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Why are you hurting Mom? You always do this. Who beats their wives? Like, how could you look at yourself for doing that? This is really hard.
Tell us about what's hard for you. It's so silly. Like, an 8-year-old, like, what the hell? Like, no 8-year-old knows what to do in that moment. For me to think I could have done something differently. Just fooling myself.
Like to hear yourself say that?
What's that?
I said, what's it like for you right now to be saying that?
It feels real. feels like accepting.
I was actually wondering if you would talk to yourself for a minute now. Like, do you think that you could imagine if, Todd today, therapist Todd, caring and compassionate and sensitive Todd, could maybe talk to 8-year-old Todd, who's terrified and furious and scared? What might you have said to 8-year-old Todd, who's saying, I should have protected my mom, and I could have saved my mom, and I should have stood up against my dad to protect my mom. I'm just wondering what would you say to 8-year-old Todd?
I thought you may say that. What would I say? I mean, what do you say to someone like that? I mean, I guess I would just kind of maybe stay to the emotions, like, little Todd, like, just so sad to hear your story. Like, oh my gosh, how hard that must have been for you, just to kind of see this, your parents fighting and, the violence. And, I can imagine you're feeling so, confused and angry and sad and just like all of that. And that would make sense. That would make sense to me. What I really want to do is kind of just hug that little guy,
Yeah.
Can you do that now? Close your eyes and picture him.
Because what, maybe I'm getting off topic a little bit, but when you cut off all of your 8-year-old memories, you kind of forget all the good memories. And I've been kind of thinking more about that lately, just, the birthday parties and your first bike and first day of school. And, all these things have slowly been coming back to me. And it's like, what the hell? What was I thinking to just cut off my emotions at 8? Like, who does that? That's clearly not a healthy person.
I'm thinking there was some pretty intense emotions that were probably pretty hard for an 8-year-old to sort out and manage and know what to do with. And maybe the safest and most adaptive thing to do when you're 8 years old and you're terrified is to try to not feel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
So how would I hug my 8-year-old self? I'm up for that.
Yeah, I was just wanting to. I don't know that it's a team method, but you could give yourself a hug.
I think it's on the 100. It's the 101st, right? It's like not 51.
We're already up to 121. This would be 122.
Hug yourself.
But how are you going to do that, Todd?
I like that, Jill. Just the I guess I need to allow myself to be consoled more by others and not go to the woe is me and the pity party. Like, cut the shit. I think you said exactly. Like, that is no longer helpful ever.
Mm-hmm. I love what you're saying. You're saying, I'm just going to write it down because it sounds really important that you're saying, you said I need to, or maybe I want to.
I want to, yeah.
I want to learn to console. Did you say that? Oh, to be consoled by others. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. To be consoled by others more. To not be so hard on myself, to not. Yeah, maybe say more.
Well, maybe, like one of the other goals for tonight would be hopefully people know a little bit more about me, and maybe I'm not feeling so alone, and people feel closer to me in kind of a weird way.
Yeah. So I think that's like, I want to be more vulnerable and real and give others an opportunity to feel close to me. I want to not be, I don't want to be the like Mr. cut the shit guy. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Like, I want to kind of feel my feelings and as a result, feel closer to other people.
Which therapist isn't allowed to feel their feelings? Like, I'm like, it's just embarrassing beyond embarrassment. You know, I guess that was the initial fear of like, yeah.
What was the initial fear, Todd?
Well, just like people must be going, what the hell? Like, I mean, going back to that angry kind of like, cut the shit, Todd. Like, how that's not 101, you know, you don't do that, you know?
Wait, you don't, you mean, you now we have like a whole other,
I know, I'm getting off topic.
Have you looked at the chat at all to see how people are reacting?
Todd, I don't think it's off topic. I just think it's that you have thought and then you criticize yourself for it. Yeah. And then you just criticized yourself for that. So you were right. You were like, I feel vulnerable. And then I tell myself, don't feel vulnerable, cut the shit. And then I go, what kind of person doesn't let himself feel vulnerable? So it's just another version of self-criticism, right?
That's what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is be so self-critical.
Yeah.
Would it be of interest to you to take a look at the chat and see how people are reacting to you? Because there's quite many comments there.
Yeah.
Because Todd, you said your goal was to share more and to be more vulnerable and maybe even get closer to other people. And now I think in response to that, people are writing things like, I feel so close to you, and hugs to little Todd, and lots of versions of I feel so warm and loving toward you.
Speechless. Yeah. It's, so how do I stay in the nurture the 8-year-old little Todd? That's kind of where I want to stay if we have time.
Well, I was wondering, and David, you can weigh in on this, but I was a little worried when David started the talking to your parents, because not that it was bad, because it was great, but I was a little worried that we were jumping the gun. And so while I would love to deliver, because it was a method basically that was designed to do something or make you feel something, but we didn't do agenda setting yet, right? We didn't actually think about what are all the good reasons not to get in touch with your feelings. And so David, I just wanted to powwow with you maybe for a moment, and with Todd too, which is to say, like, if Todd's goal is to feel more vulnerable and open and be more comfortable feeling his feelings and to not be so self-critical, right? Like, he has all these self-critical thoughts. Like, I think we could definitely help him with that. But David, wouldn't it make sense to do some agenda setting and positive reframing before we did that?
Yeah, sounds great, Jill.
Hey, you know how we always talk about failing fast? Yeah. And maybe this kind of goes to, like, on the brief mood survey, feeling pretty happy. It's like, how could so much pain lead to, like, everything that is good about my life? So it's like, and that's the kind of the dichotomy. It's like, how do I, maybe that's why it's just good to ignore it, because it led to clarity with my profession. Like, I knew, from an early age that I wanted to help other people. I never knew what a dysfunctional family was. Like, I just assumed this was normal. But like everything, I mean, I'm with you guys. I mean, how great is that? I'm in the best group in the whole world for team therapy, and I'm able to kind of learn and grow with all the people in the team community. And I met my wife through, we were interns together, and amazing daughter, and that's actually when I first started realizing about the 8-year-old Todd, is when she was 8 and she's 16 now. It's like, what the hell? She was so damn little. Like, there is like no way she would have any idea what to do. And that's when I really started opening my eyes. so then the reframe is like, yeah, like there's some good stuff that has come out of this. Is that where you were going with that, Jill?
You know what? Not
I feel like I'm controlling you guys more than allowing you just to kind of do.
I think you're doing great. I think you're doing amazingly well. And I feel, so close to you, and I think you're doing awesome. I think what you just said is not exactly positive reframing, but it's really cool, because positive reframing, we'd actually be saying, what is awesome about being so self-critical, and what is, what does it show about you that's really beautiful, that you don't want to be a sob story. Like, it would be basically, what do you want help with? And then what are all the good reasons not to change? But what I heard you say, which is just really cool, is that you have a profound feeling of gratitude in your life for what you have and how things have turned out. And that there's part of you that's saying that even though I had a really shitty time as a little kid, and maybe even beyond, and some serious dysfunction in my family, like, I have a really blessed life, right? And I have this amazing wife and daughter and profession and community. And it's just sort of fascinating that you can hold these two things, right? That you can think that things could have been so hard, and yet that things are also so amazing. I mean, is that, am I getting you right? Is that what you're saying? I mean,
and if this didn't happen, would I be in a different profession? Like, I was going to be an engineer, I was going to do something very boring,
Yeah. So you feel sort of like the fact that you had such difficulty probably drove you to want to help people.
Yeah, for sure.
For that also, you think you feel very grateful.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But again, can you tell us what your goal might be for the session?
If
something really wonderful happened, what might that be?
Yeah, I guess a combination of being less critical, being more in touch with sadness, and feeling closer to everybody in our group here.
Would you become vulnerable?
Is that too ambitious?
No, I don't think so. But would you become more vulnerable and
more vulnerable than I've already been? Maybe. I guess I would like to.
Mm-hmm, sure.
Did you?
That would be. And I think maybe I said this in the email, but like Brandon sent that music, like one of his clients or one of his.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm noticing I'm able to cry at like kind of random things, and or if I'm at church or if I see little kids, I cry. It's like I feel like I would cry all the time if I kind of let this go, and that's, actually, maybe that wouldn't be so bad.
That would actually be great.
Yeah.
So what if we said, tell me if this sounds right, but I think I hear you saying, like, if we could wave a magic wand this evening and get just what you wanted, that you would feel your feelings and you would kind of own your feelings, allow yourself to have those feelings, be vulnerable, and then you wouldn't be so self-critical, because that's what stops you from having those feelings, when you tell yourself, that stop with the woe is me, and you shouldn't be sad, and you're a coward, and right. So like, I gather that if you could feel your feelings and stop telling yourself not to have them, not to share them, that would be kind of one and the same goal. And that as a result, you'd be vulnerable and relatable, and people would feel connected to you.
That would be awesome. Is that possible? Is that on the menu?
It seems like it's on the menu to me. I mean, but again, when I look at your daily mood log, which is full of should statements and self-criticism,
self-blame.
Personally, I think that if we were to help you, and you were no longer so self-critical and being so hard on yourself, and we worked a bit on like maybe some of the self-compassion methods and things like that, that you'd be more open and vulnerable and do less of the stopping yourself. I don't, and potentially there are other methods we'd use too, but it seems like maybe she'd share more of your feelings without telling herself not to have them, and without worrying about people judging you. I mean,
I think that's it. Exactly. Sharing my emotions without worrying what others think.
I want my heart to open up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think, and you said sharing your feelings without worrying about what others think. So yeah, I mean, I think would it make sense to you, David, then that we would do a kind of magic button, positive reframe?
Sure, Jill.
Magic dial, and then move in the direction of what he's asking for?
Yeah, sure.
I got to just say, this is really surreal, this whole night so far. Thank you for doing this. This is pretty damn awesome. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Well, thank you for doing this, Todd. You're pretty awesome.
So, let's just do exactly that, Jill.
Okay. Did you want me to?
Yeah, you're doing great.
Okay.
I'll gladly follow your lead.
So, Todd, if we could press a magic button and you could walk out of this session tonight getting just what you wanted, you'd feel in touch with your sadness, you'd share your feelings, you'd be open and vulnerable and not self-critical, right? You'd be feeling sad and really good about feeling sad, right? Not at all ashamed about feeling sad, and not worrying about what everybody thinks of you. Would you press that button?
Of course.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's what everybody says. And I'm with you. I get you. And I think David and I would love to see that too. And at the same time, I can think that there are probably a lot of good reasons to keep criticizing yourself for these feelings and criticizing yourself for what you've done. And I'm wondering, can you think of any good reasons to hang on to your self-criticism?
And your anxiety and your depression and your shame and your loneliness and your defectiveness and etc. And telling yourself, I shouldn't have hidden with my brother, and I'm derailing the group, and on and on. I was a frickin' coward, and
did I say that? I think I did, huh?
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah. What's positive and awesome about that? Mm-hmm. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Which you said a lot. I'm just trying to,
well, let's take your depression first and your sadness.
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, it is sad. I mean, who's like, what's not sad about, a little boy seeing his mom beaten in front of him,
Yeah.
That's beyond sad.
Yeah. Horrible.
And so if you're not sad, like what are you? It's like, yeah.
So the sadness shows my humanity.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it was just sad in totality, because it's like that was the end of my family, as I knew it.
So it's
like a family unit.
Shows that you value family.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So that was the last time I really lived with my brother and mom and dad, and then we were split up. And
is that true?
So
family,
so family's like super important.
Is important to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Should I be writing this? Should I be writing this down? Yeah.
You writing them down?
Could I type them down?
Yeah, please do.
Shows my humanity, my commitment to family.
Mm-hmm.
What's great about saying that you're just derailing the group with the pity party?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that it's, if I'm derailing the group, I want others to kind of have a different agenda than about me. I put others before me.
Would you put that down?
Yeah.
So you're saying it shows me being worried that I'm derailing the group. It shows that I care.
I value everybody's time. And a few people were super excited about the exposure, and then, I know we'll get to it next week. But right. I was kind of bummed, like, oh, now we're taking a detour towards 1976 to,
But it shows just how much you value the group, that you're so concerned, here we are with this like kind of ever evolving agenda, but Todd's worried that he's going to take us off by 1 week. So you just care so much about everyone in the group and their time and energy and what they want.
Well, everybody commits quite a bit here. It's a lot of work, and, I value everybody's time, and there's some pretty brilliant people here that it's super awesome, as I've already said.
Yeah.
So just much gratitude to just being here and being able to derail the group.
Yeah. When you say I'm screwed up 100%, but what are some positives there? What are some benefits?
I guess it challenges me not to be screwed up, and I've been here for a couple of years, so maybe that's helping.
Do you think when you tell yourself I'm screwed up, it motivates you to get unscrewed up?
Yeah.
Okay. So
it motivates me not to have what I had as a kid at 8 years old. Mm-hmm. That's what I really have always wanted.
Yeah.
To be a loving husband, to be nurturing, put my arm around my daughter kind of parent. Just love my family and try to take care of my shit,
Yeah.
Which I'm trying to tonight.
Did you write that down?
Which part?
Yeah, well, that, telling myself I'm screwed up motivates me to be an excellent dad and husband and even group member.
Yeah, loving husband and parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're telling yourself, I shouldn't have hidden with my brother, what does that show about you that's positive and awesome?
Really? Is there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're telling yourself, you're reprimanding yourself.
Yeah.
For not protecting your mom, right? I shouldn't have hidden with my brother. And so,
So what does that tell about you that's positive and awesome?
I'm definitely stuck on this one.
Well, let's think about it. You're saying I shouldn't have gone and hidden with my brother.
Yeah.
So what are some benefits of telling yourself that? And also, what does that show about you that's really positive and awesome, you and your core values? Let me put it to you a different way. If you press that magic button, then that thought will disappear. And you will not believe that you shouldn't have hidden. You just think it was cool that you hid. Is that what you want?
I think this is a key moment, and I'm really, I'm still stuck. Again, I think that's the shame, where I feel like I could have done something.
Yeah,
but maybe that's that critical.
Yeah, I mean, what does that shame show about you that's positive and awesome?
What does the shame show about hiding from my dad?
Well, you're telling yourself that I shouldn't have hidden, and you're feeling ashamed of that.
I'm actually glad my brother didn't go there, because my dad would have hit him for sure. Hurt him really. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, let me just ask you, like, when you tell yourself, I should have protected my mom.
Yeah.
Who are you caring about in that situation?
Oh, my mom, of course.
Right. And what does it show about?
That I don't want any harm to my mom. I want her to feel protected and safe. And
is that true?
Yeah.
Is that real?
Yeah.
Is that powerful?
But that's where I screwed up, though. That's where I didn't.
Right. So telling yourself that you screwed up, what does that show about you again? That's awesome.
That I valued her safety and her being nurtured and protected.
Is that important?
Yeah.
Is that
of
true?
Course. Yeah.
Is that powerful?
Yeah.
Can you add that to your list?
Mm-hmm.
That I love my mom, that I value her safety, that I want to protect her.
Yeah, and want to protect her. What else does it show about you that's
wouldn't everybody want that? Well, I guess I'm getting stuck with the thought, with the action.
Right. So here, let me just see. I don't know if this will help, but so you were 8 years old and you hid because you were frightened. And one option would be to have compassion with yourself and to think, I was 8 years old, like maybe you would with your daughter now, right? If there was some huge fight and she were 8 years old, would you want her to run into the mix?
No,
that was wise and advisable.
No.
So there's part of you that wants to let yourself off the hook, right? And say, like, to be loving and compassionate and to feel those feelings. But there's part of you that's saying, no, you should have protected your mom. And we're saying, like, that voice, that self-critical voice is also the voice that's like, I really care about my mom and I care about doing the right thing and I care about saving her and protecting her. And that's like where you're kind of stuck, right?
So I need to let myself off the hook because I was 8 years old.
Well, maybe like that would be the other side of it. I mean, sure, I'd love that. You're going to have to convince us that you want that, but the point is right now, you're not letting yourself off the hook. And why? Because you value your mom and you want to do what's right. And you want it to say,
does it show also that you have high standards, Todd?
Yeah, of course.
Is that important?
Yeah.
Can you add that?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that you value bravery or something like that.
Thank you for listening today, and we look forward to having you join us next week for the exciting and dramatic conclusion, plus the follow-up of the fabulous session with our wonderful Todd. So, see you soon. Thank you.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.